Welcome to Metaphysical Soul Speak. I'm your host, Elena Fox Starks. Hey guys, I hope you're doing really well today, and that whenever and wherever you are, at whatever point on the globe you happen to be hearing this recording, that you are remembering to take a few moments every day to meditate. Now, a lot of people believe that meditation is going off to live in a cave somewhere or sitting on top of a mountain far, far away from others. That's not what it's about. Most of you do know that, most of you listening to my show anyway, do know that meditation can take many forms. You could sit in meditation for 4 to 6 hours a day, or you can sit in meditation for 5 to 10 minutes. And for a lot of people, that's all it takes. So I hope that whenever you're listening to this, you are remembering to at least ground yourself, center yourself, clear your aura. It just takes your mind. You just ask your angels or your holy guardian angel or your higher self to help you clear it if you don't know how, or you just imagine that your aura, anything negative, is being taken out. And you could do many different kinds of visualizations for that, including asking your angels to use their wings to clear it out. You can ask Archangel Michael or Archangel Raphael. They will help you. Or, just any number of visualizations. You could go outside and allow the wind to clear your aura. Ask the spirits of the wind to take negativity away and transform it, transmute it. You can put it deep into the earth. You can go hop into the ocean and let the waves take it away. Ask the water spirits. Or with fire, you can do it with sage, with the smoke of sage. That's kind of an air-fire combo. Or, if you're Catholic, holy water, that works as well. If you're not Catholic, you can make your own holy water. Or, well, anyone can, actually. You just put a little bit of rose essential oil and salt, like sea salt, in water and shake it up and ask God to bless it. Pray over it. If you are Muslim, there's the Suryat of Miriam, which is basically the story of Mother Mary, Jesus' mother. And that, if you just say that over the water, that will give it blessings, intense blessings. If you are Christian or Catholic, there are many passages in the Bible about protection. And the one in Isaiah about no weapon shall prosper is possible. Although I don't think you should be thinking about weapons. You should just ask, maybe the Lord's Prayer or something. Just something enough to put the positive vibe. If you are not religious at all and you are new agey, maybe you take the water and you write the word love on it and put that on the water. Or maybe purity or purify or innocence, whatever. You can put more than one word. And when you write the word, you think the energy of the word, feel it in your body, and put that on the water. And within a few days, maybe 3 days, it will be imbued with that energy. And then you could put that over yourself. You could just bless certain points, like your third eye and all of your chakras. And you can put it on your wrists and your knees like perfume. And that will help clear a lot of your energy. That's one way to do it with water, as well as with earth, because salt is considered part of the earth element itself. So however you want to do it, you could just do it with your mind or with a meditation or a prayer. or you can do it with something outside of yourself that helps you focus. So, water, fire, earth, and air is all around you as elements, and it can help you focus. Having a candle, meditating in front of a candle. If you're more into technology and gadgetry, I suggest getting a biofeedback machine or a biofeedback app that will help you with your breathing. It will help you with your concentration and focus. However you wish to meditate and cleanse yourself, cleanse your chakras, your auras, however you choose to do it. As long as you're taking 5 or 10 minutes a day to kind of clear yourself and feel your higher power, that's what's going to keep you in the highest state of vibratory frequency. And that's what's going to help you in the long run in your life. So that's my advice for today. Yay. Anyway, I'm going to get right into some of the things. DisclosureNews.it, they had a huge chunk of their chart just gone. I mean, hours, just absolutely blank and black screen. They had a lot of the white pillars going up and down from the top to the bottom of the screen again. And a lot of white space. I mean, solid chunks of white. And that means high vibratory rates, which is pretty cool. All right. Let's see. For the morning report, actually, they don't have a morning report. Excuse me. The 2 o'clock in the afternoon report. They say, today the activity started quite suddenly, and within 2 hours it reached its first significant peak at 45 hertz around midnight. This is followed by other minor peaks up to the beginning of another phase of very intense activity that began at 10 UTC time. From 11 UTC, the amplitude was above 40, with a maximum at 50 at 12:30 UTC. Now, 3 hours later at 5 o'clock, they write, or 1700 UTC, they write, the most significant part of today's movements was from 11 to 15 UTC, during which the maximum peak of the day has been reached. The oscillations are continuing around power 15, like Hertz frequency 15, which isn't like a whole lot, right? So I don't know how they're calling that the peak 15 versus 50, like 3 hours before. Anyway, 2300 UTC time says the strong activity did not stop after a brief slowdown. It has resumed from 20 UTC on with peaks over 40 hertz. So it just basically looks like there were two basic and major waves. The first one reached 50 hertz and the second one reached 40, but then after that is just a big chunk of no data. I have no idea why that is. All right, now I wanted to tell you before we get into today's readings from heartmath.org, I want to go back a little bit now till 1500 hours, which is roughly 3 o'clock in the afternoon, on, at the site of Hulului, South Africa. They reached a peak of 521 hertz frequency on the Schumann resonance scale. Because remember last night I said it had been climbing and climbing and climbing. And yesterday I reported they were at 373. Well, they climbed all the way up to 521. So now from today, I'm gonna go over all of it, but yeah, so Africa was still pretty up there. California started off at 73 hertz frequency, and they went down to 75 hertz frequency. Now in Hofuf, Saudi Arabia, they start off at 97 hertz frequency at midnight, and they were up to 104 by 4 a.m. And in Lithuania, they start off at 124 hertz frequency, and they went to 125 in Lithuania by 4 a.m. So let's see here. Alberta, Canada was at 128 hertz frequency. By 4 a.m. they were at 132. And in Northland, New Zealand, they were at 95 hertz frequency at midnight, and they went to 99 by 4 a.m. And the biggest outlier, they were all kind of grouped in there between the 90s and the 100s. All of the cities except for Hululu, South Africa, and they started off at midnight at 468 hertz frequency, and they were down to 463 by 4 a.m. But they peaked out 472 right before that at 2 a.m. Pretty crazy stuff, man. Pretty crazy stuff. So let's see here. All right, so the California winds have been in the 90s, 90 miles per hour. In Santa Rosa, they're not able to contain hardly any of the fires. Only one of them was 10% contained. 44,000 acres have burned in California in the past, I think, 48 hours or something, maybe 72 hours. It's just out of control over there. 940,000 people are without power today because PG&E decided to turn off all of the electricity. Now, this is a point of contention with me, because I've even told PG&E when I lived in Magalia, just north of Paradise, California. I mean, Paradise, if Paradise is on fire, people in Magalia are absolutely trapped. It is a fire trap. So when this happened before, in fact, before this happened before, there were some issues with our power lines because the squirrels had been eating away at the power lines in the summertime. And sometimes the squirrels will die. And when they die in the line, they pull the line down after they've chewed on it. And so the people that work for the company have to go climb the poles, get the dead squirrel off the line, and then replace the line, which leaves us without power for a day or two. And in the snowstorms, the snow will come, and the snow was so heavy that it pushes the lines down and we don't have power. So they have to go and get paid, even at night, even on the weekend, to go brush the snow off the lines. Now, in other parts of the world, people have the good sense, at least the power companies have the good sense, to bury the lines in the earth so that there's no unsightly power poles. Power poles don't get knocked over in storms. People don't lose power during massive storms or snow or squirrels. I mean, I called them once and joked with them. I said, maybe you should stop making nut-flavored lines. The squirrels won't eat them then. But see, now it's gotten more deadly. It's gotten more serious, has it not? I mean, now they're having a situation where the winds come up, and because of the electricity is arcing from their poles, it's catching local brush on fire. And bada boom, bada bing, 44,000 acres are on fire. They don't know what caused the fires, but at least in Paradise, California, the whole town is gone because of PG&E. They knew to turn off the electrical. They knew. They had a report saying that they ought to do that, that it could spark a fire, and they did not do it. They failed to do it on time. And pretty much the town where I raised my kids, more or less, is gone. There's a documentary coming out on Netflix this coming week because of that. So why haven't they made a move yet to put all the power lines under the ground? You know what they told me back then? I don't know, let's see. I would have to say about 17 or 18 years ago, I told them to do this. And what they told me was, yeah, but it would cost us so much money, millions of dollars. So instead they've cost the state of California billions of dollars. They are in middle of lawsuits. They're in the process of going bankrupt now. And they've cost 85 people in Paradise, California, their lives. Somebody else was found dead in Santa Clarita. I don't think they've even identified the body. They don't even know if it was to do with the fire or not. But so now the homicide detectives in LA County are having to deal with that. Or actually, I'm sorry, I think it's Santa Clarita County, just north of LA. But I mean, why don't they just bury the frickin' lines? That would be the number one start to this, because, the climate change is real. 90-mile-an-hour winds in Santa Rosa is not normal. 70-mile-an-hour winds in LA, not normal. Things like fire tornadoes and thunder snow, not normal. Nothing about this is normal. I mean, when I lived there a long time ago in Sacramento, I witnessed a tornado. Not normal. Having a quick twister every now and again, that's one thing. Straight up tornadoes that make you stop the county home and garden fair, not normal. I mean, I saw 200-mile-an-hour winds knock down trees in the frickin' forest. You know where else you get 200-mile-an-hour winds? Hurricanes. I was several hours from the coast when this happened. 200-mile-an-hour winds. Not normal. Absolutely not normal. We saw some stuff that just boggled the mind. In Paradise, California, we saw the northern lights. The whole sky was red. Not normal. So I don't know, but a lot of the stuff that's going on right now, they're just constant acts of God, and then, there's 253 fires burning right now in the United States, western half, 70 in Alaska. So, but the stuff that's going on, they're barely able to contain anything because the winds are so high. The winds are so strong. So, I don't know. I mean, if you live in California, can you just start writing to them? Writing to PG&E and going, hello, dumbasses, the solution lies in this. Start burying all of the power lines. Period. Maybe put them in a metal tube and surround it by cement so that animals don't get into it, and that fires will not start as a result of high winds because there's nothing above on a pole. You know how my friend Tommy, I grew up with him. He was born on August 6th. I was born on August 25th, the same month we were born, and we were inseparable for the first 5 years of our lives. Anyway, that's what he does for a living. He climbs up on these poles. He has a big set of cojones, let me tell you, that he's able to climb these huge poles and deal with the electricity in LA. And it's really very dangerous dealing with high voltage, having to go way the hell up. It's so scary. When the Northridge earthquake hit, I was walking around seeing if there's anyone I could help. My friend and I were just like, hey, let's walk around town and see what we can do. And we walked to the mall, the Northridge Mall. And on the way to the mall, there was a downed power line. And it was just going all over the road, all over the actual where the cars are driving, where the sidewalk was. We saw a guy who acted like he was going to try to grab it. And we started screaming at him, you're going to die if you grab it. And he had English as a second language. We were like, oh my God. And then my friend started screaming, no puedas, no puedas, no toca nada, no toca nada. And he, don't touch it, you can't. And he's like, ¿por qué? He's like, and my friend's like, it's energía, it's electricidad. It's energy, it's electricity. duh, and he's like, it'll kill you, and the guy's like, okay. And the guy started going around. They're like, come over to this side of the street, walk around, and he was like, okay. And he did. And we were like, oh my God, he almost died. What a dumbass. He's a dumbass too. But maybe we saved his life. We don't know. Maybe he went back to touch it later, but he was saying it was dangerous, and he was trying to help people, and we're like, no, but if you touch it, it was a live wire going all over the road. It was just like crazy. It was like a bag of angry snakes. It was just like all over the place. And it was really scary. It was like writhing rapidly, and there's no way anyone could have caught it. The only way to catch something like that is to turn off the electricity at the source, climb up the pole, detach that actual line, and then replace it with the other one. But the other telephone pole had been downed, and so the line snapped. And I mean, why do we have to have, telephone poles, power poles? And why do the power poles have to be like, 30 feet in the air or whatever? It's completely ridiculous. Like when they can be buried under the ground and there's an earthquake. Okay, so we replace that part of the line that's under the ground. So much better than having it being a live wire, right? There's like so many reasons to have it under the ground, and like completely zero reasons to have it up in the air above our heads like that. I mean, if you work with power lines and you're listening to this right now, or you know someone who does, and there's a good reason to have it 30 feet above our heads so they could just snap during a hurricane or fires or floods or riots or whatever. I mean, there's ways to encase it during floods, right? There's ways to do it. I just feel like it would be better to have it under the ground. I mean, maybe we're in places where there's flash floods, maybe not so much. But for the rest of the U.S., I think it's better. It's dangerous. Power poles are dangerous. And so anyway, that's my 2 cents worth on that. I've been really worried about all the people in California, the riots all over the world. I didn't even bother to look at it today. I'm just like, dude, I don't like looking at the news on Sundays. I just don't. I don't like looking at it any time, but sometimes it comes across my feed on various websites, sometimes in my actual news or sometimes just my YouTube. But I don't know, guys. It's just the world has gone crazy, and as a result, we're going to need to meditate more. We're going to need to raise our own vibration, let that out. When you take your deep breaths and you just imagine letting all of it go, breathing in white light, breathing out negativity, in with the new, out with the old. Even if it's for 5 minutes a day, it's going to really, really help you. All right, we're going to get into A Course in Miracles right now, acim.org. This is the Foundation for Inner Peace official website. And we're on lesson 139. And if you're just joining us, I will read a little bit from every lesson in A Course in Miracles. Basically, Jesus or Brother Yeshua actually channeled through a woman who was raised Jewish but was a scientist and didn't really believe in God. She was like an atheist. She was raised that way, but she was like, I don't really believe it, and became a scientist. And he channeled through her, so she didn't even believe in channeling. She didn't believe in any of it. And she channeled this entire book, which is really incredible. And so it's got a super high vibration. That's why I read it. It's another way to get your vibes up when you pay attention to high vibration words, music. Go to high vibrational places. If you live in LA, I highly recommend going out to Malibu to the Self-Realization Fellowship there. Any self-realization, SRF, anywhere is got good vibrations, but in particular, I like that one. Gandhi's ashes are buried there, part of them anyway. And Paramahansa Yogananda spent more time there than anywhere else. In his vibrations, he left behind. They're still there. He built a lake. There's koi fish. You could go feed the fish. It's like a park. And they have various statues and plaques and symbols of all the world's religions and all the world's spiritualities. So it's all inclusive of everyone's beliefs. And plus, it's just a really beautiful, high vibrational place. And it's like 2 blocks off the beach. It's up a mountain, or, well, very large hill. So it's a very beautiful place. So if you are near that area or you're going to visit LA, I highly recommend going there. If you ever find yourself in LA, take an extra day, go there in the morning, just relax. Maybe call ahead or look online, make sure they're open. But it's one of those high vibrational places. If you could manage to find wherever you live the highest vibrational place, natural places have a tendency to be that. Unless there was a battle or a war or some kind of a skirmish fought there, overall it's a pretty, nature's a pretty high vibrational place. If there's, if something bad happened there though, then the vibrations are dampened. So anyway, we're going to go ahead and read lesson 139, at least part of it. It says, I will accept atonement for myself. I will accept at-one-ment for myself. All right, I read it like that because atonement really means at-one-ment. Becoming at one with the prime creator. When you align your will with the one will of the universe, you can't fail. So in one of the earlier lessons, in fact, I think it's in the other book, Brother Yeshua is explaining that atonement, atoning for your sins. Well, if you become at one with the one will, there are no sins. That's just a false reality. That's fake illusion. So when you say, I will accept atonement for myself, that means I accept to be one with the divine. So this says, here is the end of choice. For here we come to a decision to accept ourselves as God created us. And what is choice except uncertainty of what we are? There is no doubt that is not rooted here. There is no question but reflects this one. There's no conflict that does not entail the single simple question, what am I? Yet who could ask this question except one who has refused to recognize himself? Only refusal to accept yourself could make the question seem to be sincere. The only thing that can be surely known by any living thing is what it is. From this point of certainty, it looks on other things as certain as itself. All right, so it goes on, and it's kind of a longer one. This section has seemed to be a little bit longer. They say it says if you spend 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night, and you dedicate your mind to this assignment, this is what it is. I will accept at-one-ment for myself, for I remain as God created me. You could also call it atonement. As long as you keep in mind that what atonement is really becoming one with divine, at-one-ment, atonement. So that's it. I will accept atonement for myself, for I remain as God created me. All right, when I come back, I'm hoping this could be a shorter one than usual. I've got some things to do around the house, and I have a really big day tomorrow, so I'm going to try to record part of tomorrow's today as well. So tomorrow, as you know, I will be reading The Spirit's Book by Allan Kardec in the next couple chapters. I believe tomorrow is part 5 or 7. I don't know. It'll say it on the thing, but again, it's just I don't even know. Usually it's questions he's asking spirits. Last time it was just his long ass diatribe that went on for like an hour. It's like, why did he even call it question 200 and whatever? It's like, whatever. I think it was like question 223, but there was literally no question. he asked himself questions and then he answered himself. So I don't even know what that was about. He was a very wordy guy. So, but we are going to go back to Allan Kardec's book. It's very, very popular, was popular 162 years ago. He was asking some very good questions from a scientific point of view and asking them of psychic mediums who answered them all the same. He asked 5 different people and they answered with the same exact answers as each other, but they did not know each other. So it seems like the same spirits were following him around, going from medium to medium with the same exact answers. Or maybe they're contacting different spirits and they had different answers. Or I mean the same answers, but from different spirits. So in any event, he did it in a scientific way that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that spirits are real. The afterlife is real. We do not die when we die. We actually just change form. So I like the fact that he proved all that. So my friend Cheryl has agreed to talk to us this week about her spiritual waiting room where ghosts have to wait. They have to wait to be served, to be sent to heaven. That's all she's been doing for months. So we're going to talk to her about that. I can't wait. That's going to be a fun interview. I think Wednesday we're going to do the interview. I don't know what day I'm going to air it, but we're going to see. It's going to be in the afternoon sometime. But hopefully Wednesday night, this will be what the episode is. But otherwise, it'll be like maybe the day before Halloween. We'll see. See, what is Wednesday? That's the 30th. So yeah, that's the day before Halloween. Excuse me. So hopefully we'll get it done for Wednesday. It's pretty intense though. Let's see here. Right, and yeah, one last thing is before I get to this, I will need you like 4 days to get it in. If you have any spiritual stories, ghost stories, spirits, or anything unusual that you've seen, and you want to share with the group, meaning the rest of the people that are listening to the show, and preserve your stories for all posterity, we are going to have a special metaphysical ghost speak on Halloween, which is the 31st of October. So I'm looking forward to hearing your stories, so please get them in. You've only got a few more days. So, okay, when I come back, I'm actually going to channel Merlin. Remember the wizard, the very famous wizard, by the Merlin and Arthur stories, but he didn't actually know King Arthur. That was just fiction. But Merlin was a real person, and he has agreed to come and speak to us tonight. So we're going to go ahead and channel him. All right, when I come back after these messages, you're going to hear from Master Merlin. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's high time you did. It is the absolute easiest way to make a podcast. First of all, it's absolutely free. Second of all, they have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. You guys have known that I've been doing this for 8 months using the Anchor.fm app right on my cell phone, and I have done it everywhere, right? I have recorded this in my living room, my bedroom, little cafes in Quito, Ecuador, all over Cuenca. It's so absolutely easy to make your podcast, and editing is just a snap. Anchor also will distribute your podcast for you, and it took me about 2.5 months to become syndicated, and now I'm available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more, and so can you. You can make money from your podcast also, and there's no minimum requirement. You get paid from your very first listener. It is everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. So please, if you are interested in making a podcast of your very own, do not hesitate to start with Anchor. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. Metaphysical Soul Speak is run on sponsors and listener support. This means listeners like you. If you are so inclined to support my efforts and my little podcast, please visit me at anchor.fm/metaphysical and pledge an amount of your choosing today. Thank you. Master Magician Merlin, or the Mage Merlin, was born in 540 and had a sister, a twin sister, called Gwendid. His name wasn't always Merlin. He was born as Myrdin Willett, and the spelling looks like it's Welsh, maybe even older, I don't know. But anyway, he lived from 540 to 584, supposedly. Okay, so he was called Myrdin Willett Merlin Caledonensis, or Merlin Sylvestris. And he is from Welsh. Oh, see, I was right. Okay, he's from Welsh legend. And he served as a bard for a Brittonic king, Gwendolo, before he finished his days living in the forests of Tweeddale in the Scottish borders, outside of Carlisle. He was a prophet, a mystic, and in his final days, they called him a madman. He went a little crazy after the king that he loved and served died in a battle. And he lived in a place that was originally, it was just the Brittonic area. They didn't really have the borders yet. But where he grew up was literally in between Scotland and England. It's right on the border. So I am connected with him already. I'm going to take a couple deep breaths, put the phone down so that I can concentrate better. And hopefully, I'm putting this on top of my purse. Hopefully it will be okay. My purse is leather, so it might have a weird sound. So hopefully it will all be okay. All right, there we go. Phone is down. All right, am I connected to Master Merlin? Muscle testing says yes. All right, guys, just for your information, especially if you're new to the show, I am an indirect channel. I do not allow anyone to take over my body or inhabit my body, only me. I'm the only one allowed, only one spirit allowed. I have already asked Archangel Michael to come and protect me, protect my body and my whole apartment and space while I do this. And I'm going to touch my forehead and see in case I need to see something that he shows me telepathically. I'm going to do this really neat trick from the Pleiadians where you touch your third eye and you say this. Ki ah sha, ki ah sha, ki ah sha. Ooh wee, it always makes my third eye pulsate. It's awesome. Master Merlin, I'm connected with you. All right. I wanted to ask, are we going to speak about Samhain tonight? Yes, we are indeed. All right, cool. All right, then you may go ahead and begin your channel now. All right. Greetings, it is I, Master Merlin. I was a magician or a mage Some of you might call it a wizard, if you will. I spent a great deal of time in my lifetime alone. Even though I served as a bard for my king, I also served as a historian, and I recorded events that were historical. When we recognized, hey, this is going to be for our posterity, or basically the king's posterity, we wrote it down. I would write skits or plays, if you will, sometimes to entertain the king, and I would write poetry and lyrics that were later set to music by other people of the court. I had a great deal of leisure time on my hands, and I did practice magic. Mostly after my king died, I went to the forest and practiced a lot of magic on my own, where I was very connected to the spirits of the forest, the animals, the seen and the unseen worlds. Helped me grow to be what I would consider, I suppose, a master magician. I learned about potions. I had a lifelong love of learning about these kinds of things, and I had my own beliefs that I can't say reflected that of my king or those of the kingdom. Pretty much I had my own spirituality about me. I had my own way of looking at the world, the universe. Some people in the night would see the night sky and they would see blackness with stars and they wouldn't contemplate it. I was the one who spent hours and hours fascinated by what I saw in the heavens. I was unlike anyone else. They called me a daydreamer, or what the equivalent of a daydreamer is. The words back then were different than the words now, but pretty much that's what I was. I was always very contemplative. I would sit for hours by myself thinking, and apparently that's what has earned me the title of madman. Did I go crazy? I don't know. Psychology wasn't invented yet, so how could any diagnoses be invented yet? Most people like hanging around other people, and therefore they're not crazy, and I wanted to hang around and talk to squirrels and bushes and trees and work with my herbs and try to learn how things work. So apparently I was crazy by the definition of the day, I suppose. Was I a prophet? Maybe not in the traditional sense, no. As seer, yes, I could see the future. I had a great deal of clairvoyant abilities. I had telepathic communication. I developed as much as I could in ways that were unseen or invisible. So people apparently thought I was a prophet. I heard that description of me, and honestly, I find it rather amusing that that's how I'm remembered throughout history. As a madman living in the forest. I'm not upset by that description. I feel that it rather does suit me. So, you're here to learn about Samhain, All Hallows Eve or Halloween to your modern day folks. But yeah, we, in the Welsh tradition, the Celtic traditions, we have always believed that when it's turning cold outside and the stars seem to be crisper and you're seeing the ephemeris gauzy vapor in the air every time you take a breath. And all the leaves fall off the trees, and it looks as if the whole world is dying. We had the belief that it was easier at that time to speak to those who had died. We didn't believe that their spirit died, only their body. This was evidenced in the trees that lost their leaves and then regrew them again and turned green again. Many of us did believe in reincarnation. We believed that we would all live again just like the trees. Sometimes we even observed that when you knock down a tree, a little one grows in its place, in the empty shell of the old dead tree. And we felt like you might be able to kill a tree, but you'll never kill its spirit. Why should it be any different for us humans? That was at least the thinking that I believed. That was the ways that I thought. That was how I arrived at my conclusions. And I believe a lot of people felt the same way. It wasn't really a popular topic. I mean, people talk about mundane things back then, as they do now, of course. How's the weather? What are you having for dinner? Would you like some more grains? I could bring them in from my fields. Boring talk. Boring talk. I found most humans rather boring when I lived as Merlin. I wonder if most of you who follow a spiritual path find most humans boring to you. I wonder how you keep from going mad with such talk of the most mundane, boring topics. I decided not to do it again, and I never did reincarnate again on Earth after I was Merlin. It was quite enough for me. I loved deeply coming here to the other side where there are libraries and halls filled with books on all my most favorite, delicious subjects. I can read about higher vibrations and higher mathematics and potions and herbs and what every single thing on earth was created to do for man, and man had the wonderful task of discovering what all the different plants did. I have spent, I guess, 1,500 Earth years reading and studying, and I've been a man of leisure since I've been on the other side. And once in a while, one of you humans come and ask me to speak. It's been a lot more active in recent times now that people have discovered their God-given gift of telepathy. For this I'm grateful, and I'm always happy to be of service and to help everybody and anybody out who asks me any questions on these things, on these topics. So we believed that going into this cold phase right before it's absolute winter, when everything is dying and yet not dead, was the best time to speak to our friends that have gone, our family members and our ancestors. We would pay homage to them. We would bring apples to their grave sites. We would bring various nuts Even blankets sometimes were brought to the grave sites of our deceased loved ones. And we knew that their spirits could not get cold, but we wanted to bring them things of comfort. We would bring them their favorite dishes, things that they love to eat, meals, drinks, foods. Even sometimes you could find, back in my day, a woman's favorite dress placed gently over her grave. We would bring colorful things, leaves, rocks, feathers from birds, whatever. Sometimes for people who were collectors and maybe practitioners of the craft, a lot of times it was hidden, and a lot of times people didn't speak out loud of it, but the family knew that they liked to collect, random items, and they were brought and placed on the grave of the person, along with whatever favorite foods they had, fruits, vegetables, you name it. On the graves of many men, you will find the ales, alcohol, whatever the person enjoyed in life was left. Wives would leave letters to husbands. Husbands would place their wedding rings just under the surface of the earth in front of the grave sometimes, especially if they are wont to take another wife. They never wanted to forget the old wife, but they didn't sometimes want to keep remnants of the old wife on the insistence of the new wife. So this was something that happened quite often, but no one wanted to have their graves robbed, so it would be buried deep in the earth. Side by side with their sweetheart would be the ring. A lot of gravestones were just marked with a stick or a twig. Some people would plant a special bush or plant so it'd be easy to find where their loved ones had been buried. It's not like the graveyards of today where it's very obvious. I've seen images of this. I've sometimes visited the earth and seen the graveside practices where people are laying side by side in rows next to each other. This is quite strange and different from how we used to do it. Many people were buried right where they died. And that's especially if they were killed on the road by a highwayman type, like a robber, or if they were killed in battle, many times they were buried right on the battlefield. In the case of people who lived in the countryside, people would just be buried in the family cemetery, the family plot. It would be usually the opposite of the garden. And sometimes sitting benches would be brought so that when we wish to go speak to our fallen ancestors or family members, that we could go and have a little chat, although it usually was one-sided. Most people not being given the gift of telepathy, most people not having been interested in working on themselves spiritually and therefore developing the powers that humans naturally do as they grow and gain in spiritual strength and power. But nonetheless, we would have our one-sided conversations with our folks. And Samhain was the one time of year where we believed it was possible to hear upon the whisperings of the wind the voices of those who passed before us. We had some fear that maybe the ghosts weren't always on our side, that maybe they were malevolent. Sometimes we felt that the Fae folk would be willing to use this time to scare us, and so we had some practices that we did. We put together what we call wheels, and they were sticks that were made in a pattern where sometimes they were flat, but 6 or 9 or 8 sticks were combined. So if you imagine like an X and then another X and then another X, sometimes people would put whatever number they felt was appropriate in the time, and they would tie it together with twine or thread from their clothing, and they would hang these wheels. Sometimes they would bless it with special oil. Sometimes they would dip it in an herbal concoction. Sometimes they would pass it 3 times over the fire. Sometimes they would consecrate it with the holy water that they had created, or dunking it in the river. They would do all kinds of things. Some people tied feathers to the wheels, and they were made to hang outside the door of the people to keep away the spirits that would be malevolent, keep away the fairy who weren't friendly folks towards us people. We would sometimes hang it in a tree branch a little bit away from the house. And yes, some people would pee on them and tie them to a tree very far away from their house, so they would somehow trick the ghost to believing that was actually their spirit was attached to that, because it is a long-held belief that blood or spit or urine would be somehow connected to your soul, and it would be able to trick malevolent spirits, or the occasional ancestor who had a bone to pick with you still from beyond the grave. And so we hoped that they worked always, and usually people were fine after Samhain. They were still living, they were still there. But we kept our beliefs about us. Other people would hang a red cloth over their door handle. They felt that would maybe trick the spirits into moving right along and not harboring themselves in their house, finding themselves walking the earth once more. So there was a lot of, at least in our little village, there was a lot of strange customs or traditions that developed over time. Some people would be so afeared that their old uncles or aunties that they did not like or they did not get along with, they were afraid that their spirits might cross back over and haunt them in their home forevermore. So because they were afraid of this, and they weren't really negative or evil spirits, but maybe relatives they did not like, they would sometimes set up a little place, like a picnic, in the woods near their home, and maybe write the name down, sometimes with sticks or in the dirt, or sometimes with ink on the cloth. They would write down the name of their relative, and they would make them their favorite pie or their favorite food, and they would put it, and not at their grave, because who wants to visit their grave after they've died and come back? So they would put it in a spot that they liked, maybe near a lake or near a river or in one of their favorite meadows, maybe near their favorite tree. And they would put the pie like, welcome to my, welcome great aunt Kali, for example, and he's showing me the word like Colleen, but Kali, I can't even tell you how it's spelled. There's a bunch of vowels. He says, so for example, it'd be like, welcome, great aunt Kali, enjoy your favorite pie with your favorite, and sometimes he's saying it'll be like tarts, or he says it's something like the pasties. I'm not getting the word. Like the Cornish people have pasties in England, and it was similar to that kind of a dish where it was bread and then meat and sometimes fruit and vegetables mixed inside with spices that they could get, and it was mixed inside the bread and baked. So he's showing that to me, and the only thing I could think of is like a Cornish pasty. Or pasty, Pasty. So, and he's showing me like pie, almost like a minced meat pie is almost what he's showing me. Oh, and he's also showing me bread and jam, like a berry jam. He says, yes, that's true. Sometimes there are, we call them preserves or jams, I suppose, but it was like crushed fruit mixed with a sweeter fruit, or if we had sugar, like the equivalent of that. Honey many times would be what was mixed with it, because many people back then kept the bees, he's saying. So, or they had like exchanges with other people who kept bees. So he's saying, like, for example, one person might have a cow and they will trade a pint of milk for a pint of honey from their bees. And there was a lot of bartering back then. People did use money, but it wasn't 100% of their trade. So everybody had what they needed. Especially if they did not have money, they could trade their sewing services, or he's showing me some women knew how to braid women's hair, so they would trade that for maybe like a cup of milk or for flour or whatever. So whatever someone needed, they would trade usually their time or a commodity, not always money. So, okay. So oftentimes we would keep to ourselves inside our homes during this time that was so cold, where we felt the veils between the worlds were thinner. And we would keep a fire and candles burning all night long. A lot of us would sit up vigils at night and not sleep for fear of our bodies having been taken over by a relative who maybe didn't like the way we were running the farm or the household, and we were afraid that they would come and take us over and do it for us, for our own good. So we were always afraid of that. A lot of us were anyway. And some people kept a vigil all night and prayed for their loved ones, that they would be safe in heaven and that all their illnesses and sadnesses were away from them. Everybody had a different way of interpreting the holiday, and it wasn't a standard issue, as it were. We had all the idea that it is very possible to speak with your dead at that time, and there were people who had the divination in them, but a lot of it was available and open, but it was starting to be frowned upon a little bit. People had cards that they used to kind of get messages from beyond the grave, and this, in the weeks leading up to the smallest, or the time where the veil is the thinnest in the worlds, between the worlds, the weeks before that, preceding that, people would get their cards read. And a lot of the local people who were also interested in magic, they would create their own cards. They would create their own messages, and the message from beyond the grave was only as good as the message on the cards themselves. Some of the cards would say jealousy, or love, or heartache, or money. And then the person interpreting these words would have to do a real fine job if they were to keep their customers. And some did, and the ones who were not so good at it took to the road, and they would travel on their merry way, telling fortunes to people that did not amount to anything ever. But they would get their money and take off, and they would never be seen again. And after the person who had their money taken for nothing realized, by the time they realized that their fortune that was told was not true, was just a made-up fantasy, the person was long gone, never to be seen or heard from again, because they just traveled on and on and on and on. I myself was an often consulted seer, because I was given the gift from years alone in the forest. I was able to practice my craft in many different ways, and I learned and grew considerably, and I was able to give more accurate information. So I never had to take off and live on the road. I was able to live, for the most part, a solitary life until people came to ask me questions from their ancestors or from the spirits around them. It was funny, though, that hardly anyone asked to hear from God. Everybody was afraid of God. They would worship the god and the goddess more often than not, but they would not really want to hear directly from God, because they felt it was maybe a little disrespectful, because who are they compared to God? And they put themselves in a much lesser position without knowing their true selves. And that's how most people prefer to play that game, as it were. I lived alone because I didn't have anyone else to talk to about the truth and the reality of nature and the worlds the way that I was beginning to see it. I had made great strides, and I was really grateful when I finally died and learned the truth of what I had been learning on Earth. And I was shocked to find how much information I was able to glean from just being out in the forest and observing nature the way that I did. I was grateful that I was set upon the right track for me, for my soul. Many times after the long night of Samhain had passed, people would be so grateful that they would put flower petals in their doorway. But many times it was dead flower petals, as kind of a thank you to their relatives for stopping by, but to remind them that they have been deceased and they have to go back where they came from now. People would gather the flowers and keep them alive as long as possible, but usually in the summertime, and then they would keep them dried, and they would keep them bound up, and usually under a heavy cloth, until the day after Samhain, where they would put them in front of their door. And it was kind of a thank you, but no thank you. Thank you for coming. This is your away with you flowers. And it was a reminder, gentle reminder, instead of saying out loud, hey, you're dead, go on back now. Time for you to get going. We didn't say that. We would say it with flowers. A lot of times people would weave a special welcome into a mat and they would turn that mat over for Samhain, and that would be in front of their door, and sometimes they would turn it back around. So for the rest of the year, it would just be the normal mat, and it's usually made from grass or leaves. Sometimes people would take branches of trees and make a mat, but on the back of the mat would be woven into the branches, the leaves, and the remnants of old flowers. Sometimes people would have a second mat they would use only for that purpose, but more often than not, it was like the back of the mat. And when it broke down and went back into the earth, another mat would be created. Usually once a year, people would create a mat, and it was to keep the dirt out of the house, just normal. I see that you have materials way different than what we used for welcome mats. And it's mostly like we're welcome the person, but not the dirt into our house from their shoes. But in our village, at least, we had the mats were handmade. Some people would put cloth over theirs, but usually it was just branches and the like. And sometimes the branches would be held together with cloth. But if a child had passed over during the Samhain ritual or tradition, we would leave. I never did. I never had children, but a lot of the mothers and fathers who had lost their children would put a small cup of milk, usually goat's milk, with honey mixed in for good measure to attract the sweet spirit of their deceased loved ones that were children or babies. And this was meant to show a great deal of affection and love, lest they be haunted later by the babies who had passed. And sometimes they would leave a little toy, a rattle, or something that was belonging to the baby, like a blanket. But then at the end of the ritual or the next day, they would take it back and hide it in their home. And then they would use it for the following year, because every year they wanted the baby to understand that it was still loved, even though it was gone. Many people did that. Some people would do a ritual and release the spirit entirely, and some people that could not let go and were still hurting over the loss would still do this every year with the honey and the milk. In the towns, there were candles that were left in the center of the road, and that would be in case spirits wanted to come back and gather in the center of town where the happiest and joyous of occasions and festivities had taken place. So it was not uncommon to go into town the day after Samhain to see the candle wax spent on the road everywhere. Many candles lining the roads. So these are the rituals, these are the things that people did, and the traditions and customs, the people of the day. A lot of people would wear their clothing inside out. Sometimes they would sew the color black into the women would sew color black into their skirts. Sometimes the men would have black sewn into their pants, and they would turn them inside out and wear them on that day, especially in the nighttime, to confuse the spirits or to look invisible themselves so that they would not be detected by spirits, relatives that were angry, that died angry at them, or that were malevolent. Maybe some of these things sound crazy to you, but in looking back, it seems a little crazy to me as well. But this was some of the things that people were often want to do, especially if they had fear or shame at how they acted towards someone before they passed. We did not have psychologists there or self-esteem workshops the way you do, and so this was the way that they had to deal with these things. I will be honest with you, I had a great deal of love for my people. Their traditions and ways might sound a little strange and weird, and a lot of the traditions have been lost over the years, and people don't know what was happening back then, but I remember well. And even if people seemed ignorant or simple-minded back then, to me they were just dear people. I loved them all. I didn't want to have conversations with the boring ones, but I still managed to have a great deal of affection for most people. I feel that Samhain is a time now for you guys, all of you, to honor your relatives that went before you, your ancestors, and your more recently departed. It is a time, at least in heaven, where we look forward to seeing all the wonderful things that you do to remember those of us that went before you. We try our very best to come and be with you, to at least give you a gentle kiss on the cheek. Some of you might get a little tug at your hair or your clothing, and we don't mean this in a bad way. Usually it's just a matter of affection and love for you. Many times we will try to whisper hello in your ear. We'll say your name or try to give you a little hug. You might hear something on the wind. Some of you might hear or smell. You might hear a tune that we sang, or you might smell an odor of something that we ate in life, or smoke if we smoked. You might smell heather. If you're Scottish, you might smell heather in the wind just for a split second, if your mom loved the heather fields, for example. You might smell your father's tobacco or your mother's perfume or your grandmother's pie or special tarts. We had these things happen to us back then, and it is no different now. These kinds of things will happen to you if you allow yourself to be open on All Hallows Eve or Samhain. This can be a very sacred holiday for you if you allow it. Many people believe this holiday is evil, and a lot of people have introduced their own evil thoughts and ideas into it. And the ideas of evil magic or evil witches and devils and demons and all of these ideas came later after my time. They became more popular maybe 1,000 years after me. And I find that a little sad. I'm not happy about that. I feel that for those of us who lived in a very simple time, we had extraordinary ways of dealing with our sorrow and our sadness and the feelings of loneliness when we were lonely for the people that went before us. And sometimes we were afraid of the mad ones, the angry ones. But overall, we built up rich traditions around the things that we did not understand and the emotions and psychological issues that we had no other way of dealing with. I have been absolutely fascinated to read your books on psychology. Did you know that all the books that were ever written on earth also are in heaven in the astral Akashic records, as well as up in heaven and where we are, the higher realms? Nothing is ever lost in the universe, and we have copies of everything. So I have read the works of many men that came a long time after me. And I've made quite a study of humanity, I must say, and I've been really grateful for it. In short, you people fascinate me. I say if you want to carry on with tradition, you may put a candle in the window to call forth the spirits that are of the light. Fire and candle, meaning of the light. You may put branches or bits and pieces of dead flowers outside your door or outside where you live, maybe on your sidewalks, if you feel that you don't want your old relatives hanging around. You may adopt some of these traditions if you like. Or you might have your own. Many of you put a plate out for your relatives, your ancestors, to come and join and sup once again with you when the walls of the worlds are thinner. And there you shall have together again your dinner. I am grateful that I was able to speak with you tonight and share a little bit of the world in which I came from, that I lived the last time. I'm happy that you still know of me, even though I died a lonely old prophet, seer, or madman in the woods, in the forest. I was a true mystic, but most people just called me crazy. I was a crazy old man in the forest, and for the most part, the kids would come to taunt me sometimes, and the adults would steer clear, make an extra wide path around my house. But I didn't bother. If they weren't going to bother with me, I wasn't going to bother with them, and that was perfectly okay. I was always quite busy making a study of, magic, the magical qualities of all the things around me. I wish all of you a beloved and harmonious Samhain. For this is the Samhain season, and I'm going to go now. He's saying, guys, he's telling me that he has lectures calling him and books with his name on it. He says, no, really? He says he has a stack of books. He put his name on it. On top, he wrote it on paper and put it on top. He didn't want anyone to touch his books because he says, I'm mad for books. I'm mad with desire of learning and knowledge always. That's my fondest wish, is to increase my knowledge, my intelligence, and when I'm not increasing my humility through meditation and prayer and supplication, I am. And when I'm not feasting, I am reading and learning more and more. Because I'm being called upon more and more, he says, to help humanity now. He says he finds it odd, but very fabulous at the same time. He's grateful for that. So he wanted to thank you guys for that. That's what he's telling me. All right. I have Master Merlin, Mage Merlin. He is with me, he's a part of my spiritual team. He says he's willing to be on your team if you feel a pull or a call in his direction. Especially if you are a magical being, he will be more than happy to assist you in any knowledge of herbs, potions, spells, higher vibratory magic that will benefit you and humanity. That's what he's basically telling me. Cool. He says he wishes he could send each and every one of us a basket full of berries for the Samhain, because this is a time where the brambleberry bushes come up, and it was a very popular time for berries in that part of the world at this time of the year. So he says, imagine them sending you a basket full of berries for this Samhain. He says, enjoy yourselves and keep yourselves duly sequestered inside your homes during Halloween to keep from the chill and to let the spirits go on their way. So he's giving a bow. He's bowing to you, and he says, "For now, I bid you fare thee well. For now." Thank you, Master Merlin. Love you. He says, "And I you." Okay. He says to me, "And I'll talk to you later." All right. Awesome. Cool. All right. If you guys want to talk to Master Merlin, you can ask him to come and give you dreams, or come and visit you in your dreams to teach you. He can be a good dream teacher if you don't have your telepathic powers developed as of yet. Even automatic writing, he's saying, is a way that you can learn information from him. Automatic writing, we'll have to go over what that is. If you just have a notebook and you ask him and then you put yourself in a trance and you write anything that comes to you. But first you have to protect yourself and maybe sage out your place and have an energetically clear space. But that is one way to learn some stuff. I learned some stuff from my higher self in the beginning through automatic typing. I used a typewriter, and also automatic writing. Some people do it through automatic drawing of pictures. But you have to be very careful with it, because if you don't know what you're doing, you're not duly protected, and you scare easily, and you have fear when you start, you're not going to attract the right spirit. So we might have to go through that someday. Anyway, that's all for now about that. Remember to send in your ghost stories, your spirit stories, and, well, it's given you a lot of cool things to think about. I've kind of enjoyed this one. Master Merlin's always fun to talk to. So, well, that's all I can say. Thank you for being on this journey with me. Thank you for telling your Facebook groups and your Twitter followers about me, and your family and friends that are of like mind. Thank you for gathering the soul tribe and the soul family together. I see your efforts, and I see that people are starting to listen to the show that didn't before. We're getting new people. I want to thank you for that. And thank you for those of you who have recently sent me donations, and for those of you who have sent me money to do readings. I'm a little bit backlogged. Riley is the next one. Riley, you're still on the list. You're number one on the list because you've been on this list for like a month. I've been just absolutely swamped with, rights for 2 weeks and being sick for a week and a half. But I'm getting to it, hopefully this week, in the next few days, maybe right after Halloween. I'm hoping to get to it. I have about 4 or 5 people. It's like a backlog now, but I'm getting to it. So thank you for those of you who are asking for readings. And we're a couple weeks behind, but we're getting to it. Well, that's it. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for listening tonight. I'll be back tomorrow with all unique and original programming, just as always. I will be reading The Spirit's Book by Allan Kardec tomorrow. And that's it. So I'm signing off with peace and joy and the high vibes of the holy fifth dimension. Till next time, guys. Peace. Do you ever wish you could look into the next chapter in your book of life and see what's coming next? What does the universe have in store for you? I can help you with that. I will give you a Celtic cross reading, which is 10 cards, or you can ask me 3 questions, and I use 3 cards per question. So that's 9 cards, or I can channel your higher guidance, or maybe God directly for you. Maybe you want to talk to your dear departed Aunt Edna, because maybe you have a few questions and she was the smartest person you knew. If your deceased relatives are available or your ascended masters, I can channel them for you personally. Let me have 1 hour to show you the future in your next chapter of your book of life. Readings are $75, and it takes me an hour to an hour and a half to complete. And for this price, you will also be hooked up to the healing grid around the planet for free, which means yours truly, me, I will be giving you Reiki 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of your life. All you have to do is let me know. metaphysicalsoulspeak@gmail.com, and we will explore your future together.